Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into a story that's both captivating and tragic. The story of the Radium Girls.
Yeah.
So just picture this. It's the Roaring '20s.
Right.
It's a time of, prosperity, innovation, and this new, miracle element bursts on the scene.
Yeah.
Radium. And it promises everything from medical cures to, everlasting youth.
Wow.
But little did anyone know at the time, this glowing wonder was going to leave a very dark stain on history.
It really is fascinating how radium captured the public imagination.
Right.
I mean, the fact that it literally glowed in the dark must just seem like magic back then.
Oh, absolutely.
But of course, this allure masked a danger that scientists were only beginning to even understand.
And that lack of understanding, coupled with, very aggressive marketing,
Right.
led to some truly wild products hitting the market.
Oh, yeah.
Radium toothpaste, radium cosmetics,
Wow.
even radium-infused water.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable looking back now.
Yeah, it really highlights how scientific progress can sometimes really outpace our understanding of the risks involved. And in the case of radium, that initial excitement really blinded people to the potential hazards.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was the Radium Girls who paid the heaviest price.
Absolutely. So to really understand this story, let's go back to the very beginning, to the discovery of radium itself.
Right.
And this is where, of course, the brilliant Marie Curie enters the picture.
Yeah.
A scientist who dedicated years of her life to isolating this elusive element.
Curie's work was truly groundbreaking, but even she experienced firsthand the dangers of radium.
Really?
She actually suffered radiation burns from handling it,
Wow.
a warning sign that went largely unheeded at the time.
It's almost like a Greek tragedy in a way.
Yeah.
This brilliant scientist unlocking the secrets of this powerful element, unaware of the devastation it would eventually cause.
And, it's important to remember the scientific context of the time. I mean, the understanding of radiation was still in its infancy. I mean, the very word radioactivity was actually coined by Curie herself.
Wow.
So, while we know now that radium emits harmful radiation as it decays,
Right.
that wasn't common knowledge back then.
No, not at all. So you have this element with these seemingly magical properties, right? Being touted as this cure-all
Yeah.
added to everyday products. It's no wonder people were so captivated by it.
Right.
But while the public was caught up in this allure of radium,
Yeah.
a much darker story was unfolding in factories across the country.
Right. This is where we meet the Radium Girls.
Yes.
Young women who are working in factories like U.S. Radium and Radium Dial.
Right.
They were employed to paint watch and clock dials with luminescent paint, a job that at the time seemed quite desirable.
From what I've read, these jobs were seen as a step up from other factory work,
Right.
offering better pay, more pleasant working environment.
Yes.
Plus, there was the allure of working with this miracle element.
Exactly. The studios where they painted were often described as having this more artistic, even glamorous atmosphere
Wow.
compared to the harsh conditions of typical factories.
Right.
And let's be honest, who wouldn't be fascinated by the idea of literally glowing in the dark?
It's almost tragic how this perceived glamour masked the very real danger they were in.
And this is where the practice of lip pointing comes in,
Oh, yeah.
a detail that really highlights the negligence at play.
Right.
To achieve the fine lines needed for these dials, the women were actually instructed to use their lips and tongues to sharpen their paintbrushes.
It's horrifying to
Yeah.
think about now, knowing what we know about radium's toxicity.
Absolutely.
And what's even more disturbing is that European factories had already moved away from this practice,
Really?
using safer tools.
Wow.
But in the U.S., it seems profit took precedence over worker safety.
Absolutely. And to make matters even worse, the companies were fully aware of the risks.
Really?
They knew about the radiation burns and other health problems associated with radium exposure.
Wow.
But they actively downplayed those dangers to their workers.
Can you imagine that?
It's hard to believe.
Being told this substance is harmless while you're literally painting it onto watch dials with your tongue.
I know.
It's just a shocking level of deception.
It's a stark example of how powerful entities can prioritize profit over the well-being of their employees.
Yeah.
And in this case, the consequences were devastating.
So let's talk about the health problems that the Radium Girls started experiencing.
Okay.
Because as I understand it, the early symptoms were often quite subtle and easily dismissed.
Right. They started with things like fatigue,
Okay.
toothaches, and jaw pain. The radium was actually being mistaken by the body for calcium,
Wow.
and it was accumulating in their bones,
Oh, God.
slowly poisoning them from the inside out.
And because the dangers of radium weren't widely understood, a
Yeah.
lot of doctors misdiagnosed these early symptoms,
Right.
attributing them to more common ailments.
Some doctors, either influenced by the companies or simply lacking knowledge about radiation poisoning,
Right.
even went so far as to blame the women's illnesses on things like syphilis,
Oh, wow.
a deliberate attempt to shame and silence them.
It's just heartbreaking to think about these women suffering these strange and debilitating symptoms, only to be dismissed or even blamed for their own illnesses.
And it's important to remember that the long-term effects of radium exposure are particularly insidious.
Right.
The radiation emitted as radium decays can actually cause DNA damage,
Wow.
leading to an increased risk of cancer, particularly bone cancer.
So even if the Radium girls didn't experience immediate acute symptoms,
Yeah.
they were still being exposed to this radioactive element that was slowly wreaking havoc on their bodies.
Exactly. And as their conditions worsened, some of the women began to develop this horrific condition known as radium jaw.
And this is where the radium, concentrated in their jawbones,
Right.
started to literally disintegrate the bone,
It's awful.
leading to excruciating pain, deformities, and in some cases, even death.
It's a chilling example of the long-term damage that radiation exposure can inflict.
Yeah.
And remember, all of this was happening while the companies producing the radium paint were actively trying to cover up the dangers.
It's a story of both scientific discovery and corporate greed,
Yeah.
with the Radium girls caught in the middle.
And their story's far from over.
Right.
As their symptoms worsened and the truth about radium's dangers began to emerge,
Mm-hmm.
the Radium girls refused to stay silent.
Wow.
They would go on to fight for justice,
That's incredible.
a fight that would have far-reaching consequences for workplace safety and workers' rights.
We'll delve into that fight and its legacy in the next part of our deep dive.
As the Radium girls' health continued to deteriorate, this sense of suspicion really started to grow.
Yeah.
They began to question the reassurances that they had been given about radium safety,
Mm.
especially as they saw more and more of their colleagues succumbing to these similar mysterious illnesses.
Yeah, I mean, imagine the fear and the confusion they must have felt.
Oh, absolutely.
Their bodies are failing, their doctors are baffled,
Right.
and the companies that they worked for just insisted everything was fine.
Yeah.
It's a classic case of gaslighting, really.
It is. And it's important to remember that these women weren't just passive victims.
Right.
They were strong, intelligent individuals who, once they started connecting the dots,
Yeah.
were determined to fight for the truth.
And one of the key figures in this fight was Grace Fryer,
Oh, absolutely.
a dial painter who refused to be silenced.
Yeah.
And despite her worsening health, she really embarked on this quest for justice that would ultimately challenge a powerful corporation and change the course of labor history.
Fryer's determination is truly inspiring.
Yeah.
I mean, she faced countless obstacles.
Right.
Finding a lawyer willing to take on this major corporation, battling all these legal roadblocks,
Yeah.
even dealing with the skepticism and hostility from her own community.
It's amazing to think about the courage it must have taken for these women to speak out.
I know.
I mean, they were going up against a powerful industry that had all the resources to crush them.
And the companies used every tactic imaginable to try and discredit them and delay justice.
Really?
They hired their own medical experts who downplayed the dangers of radium.
Wow.
They spread misinformation in the press,
Gosh.
and they even tried to use the women's social lives against them,
Oh, wow.
suggesting that their illnesses were caused by other factors.
It's a chilling reminder of how power can be used to silence and manipulate.
It is.
But the Radium girls, despite their failing health and the immense pressure they faced, refused to back down.
Their solidarity was crucial.
Yeah.
They supported each other, they
Right.
shared their stories,
Right.
and they formed this united front against the companies.
Wow.
This collective action really gave them strength and amplified their voices.
And their efforts started to attract public attention.
They did.
The story of these glowing women dying from a mysterious illness.
Yeah.
It caught the interest of the media, and soon, the Radium girls' plight was making headlines across the country.
Public sympathy really played a crucial role in turning the tide.
Absolutely.
People were outraged by the company's callous disregard for their workers' lives,
Yeah.
and this groundswell of support really helped to create pressure for legal action and accountability.
And it wasn't just public opinion that shifted.
Right.
Scientists also began to take notice,
Yeah.
conducting independent research that confirmed the link between radium exposure and the Radium girls' illnesses.
That's right.
And this scientific validation was crucial in challenging the company's claims that radium was harmless.
One of the most striking examples of the Radium Girls' bravery is the case of Catherine Schaub.
Oh, yes.
Knowing that she was terminally ill, she agreed to undergo these painful medical examinations
Oh, God.
and even offered her body for scientific study after her death.
It's a remarkable act of selflessness.
It really is.
Schaub and many others like her understood that their sacrifice could help to save others from the same fate.
Yeah.
Their willingness to endure pain and scrutiny for the sake of scientific knowledge is truly admirable.
And Schaub's sacrifice wasn't in vain.
Right.
Her case, along with the growing body of scientific evidence, really helped to solidify the link between radium exposure and the health problems that were plaguing the Radium Girls. This was a major turning point in their legal battle.
It's fascinating how this story intersects with the evolution of forensic science.
It really does.
Back then, understanding radiation and its effects on the human body was a relatively new field.
Yeah.
The Radium Girls cases really pushed the boundaries of scientific knowledge and helped to establish these new methods for investigating occupational diseases.
Absolutely. The Radium Girls cases really forced the medical and legal communities to confront the long-term health consequences of radiation exposure.
Yeah.
Their suffering played a crucial role in shaping our understanding of occupational hazards and worker safety.
So after years of fighting, what was the outcome of the Radium Girls' legal battles?
Right.
Did they ultimately achieve justice?
Well, justice is a complex concept in this case.
Okay.
The Radium Girls faced numerous legal hurdles, and the companies used their vast resources to delay and obstruct the process every step of the way.
Of course.
But ultimately, through sheer perseverance, they did achieve some significant victories.
Let's talk about those victories.
Yeah.
What kind of precedents did their cases set, and what impact did they have on labor laws and workplace safety standards?
Well, the Radium Girls' legal battles led to some landmark rulings that had far-reaching consequences. For example, their cases helped to establish the legal concept of proof of causation in occupational disease claims.
Okay.
So that meant that workers no longer had to prove definitively that their illness was caused by their work,
Wow.
which was incredibly difficult to do with the limited scientific knowledge at the time.
That's a huge shift.
It is.
It basically shifted the burden of proof from the worker to the employer,
Right.
forcing companies to take greater responsibility for the health and safety of their employees.
Exactly, and their cases also helped to pave the way for the development of workers' compensation laws,
Okay.
which provide financial assistance to workers who are injured or become ill as a result of their jobs.
So while the Radium Girls themselves may not have received full compensation for their suffering,
Right.
their fight helped to create a system that protects workers today.
It did.
Their legacy lives on in the workplace safety regulations we often take for granted.
And their story serves as a reminder that individual voices can indeed make a difference, even when facing these seemingly insurmountable odds.
Yeah.
Their courage and determination really sparked a movement
Right.
that continues to influence labor rights and workplace safety practices to this day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Their story is both inspiring and heartbreaking.
It is.
But before we wrap up, I want to touch on another aspect of the Radium Girls' legacy.
Okay.
The environmental consequences of radium production.
Right.
We mentioned earlier that some of the factories where they worked are now designated as Superfund sites. What does that mean exactly, and what challenges do these sites pose?
So Superfund sites are areas that are so contaminated with hazardous substances that they require long-term cleanup efforts.
Wow.
The environmental legacy of radium production is a stark reminder that industrial progress can come at a significant cost to both human health and the environment.
It's almost like this hidden cost of progress.
Yeah.
We get these amazing technological advancements, but sometimes we fail to fully account for that long-term environmental impact.
Exactly. And in the case of radium, the contamination can persist for decades,
Really?
even centuries.
Wow.
The radium that was carelessly discarded or leaked into the environment can continue to emit radiation, posing risks to both human health and the ecosystem.
So the story of the Radium Girls is not just about worker safety.
Right.
It's also a cautionary tale about the importance of environmental responsibility
Yes.
and the long-term consequences of our actions.
Absolutely. It highlights the interconnectedness of human health and environmental health, and the need for sustainable practices that protect both.
It's a sobering reminder that the choices we make today can have far-reaching consequences for generations to come.
It is.
But let's end on a more hopeful note.
Okay.
What lessons can we learn from the Radium Girls story? And how can we apply those lessons to our own lives and the challenges we face today?
I think the most enduring lesson from the Radium Girls is really the power of speaking truth to power. these women facing unimaginable hardship.
Right.
They refused to be silenced. They challenged a system that sought to exploit and marginalize them.
Yeah, their story really underscores the importance of questioning authority
Absolutely.
and advocating for ourselves and others,
Right.
especially when it comes to issues of health and safety.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in holding institutions accountable and ensuring that ethical considerations are prioritized.
It's also a reminder that progress isn't always linear.
Right.
Sometimes advancements come at a terrible human cost.
And it's our responsibility to learn from those mistakes and strive for a more just and equitable future.
Absolutely. And in the case of radium, the initial wonder and excitement surrounding its discovery
Right.
were so quickly overshadowed by the tragic consequences of its misuse. It's a cautionary tale about the importance of balancing scientific progress with ethical considerations
Right.
and a deep respect for human life.
Another key takeaway for me is the importance of scientific literacy.
Yeah.
The Radium Girl's story highlights how a lack of understanding about the dangers of radiation allowed these tragedies to occur.
You're absolutely right. It underscores the need for clear, accessible information about scientific advancements and their potential risks.
Right.
Informed citizens are better equipped to make decisions that protect their health and well-being and to hold those in power accountable for their actions.
And it's not just about understanding the science itself.
Right?
It's also about being critical consumers of information.
Yeah.
Being wary of marketing claims, seeking out multiple perspectives.
Exactly. In today's world, we are bombarded with information.
Right.
And it's more important than ever to be discerning and to question what we're told, especially when it comes to our health and safety.
So how do we honor the legacy of the Radium Girls?
Right.
What can we do as individuals to ensure that such tragedies don't happen again?
I think it starts with awareness.
Yeah.
By learning about their story, understanding the sacrifices they made,
Right.
and acknowledging the injustices they faced, we can keep their memory alive and ensure that their fight wasn't in vain.
It's about carrying their torch forward,
Yeah,
advocating for stronger workplace safety regulations,
absolutely.
supporting organizations that fight for workers' rights, and demanding transparency from companies and industries that handle hazardous materials.
And it's about remembering that these issues aren't just historical footnotes.
Right.
They're still relevant today.
Absolutely.
We need to be vigilant about protecting workers in all industries, ensuring they have access to safe working conditions and accurate information about potential hazards.
It's about fostering a culture of safety and responsibility, where profit doesn't come at the expense of human life or environmental well-being.
The Radium Girl story is a powerful reminder that every worker deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, and that every human life is precious. Their legacy lives on in the countless lives that have been saved and protected thanks to the advancements in workplace safety
Right.
and this heightened awareness of occupational hazards.
So while their story is filled with tragedy, it's ultimately a testament to the human spirit's resilience,
Right.
the power of collective action,
Absolutely.
and the enduring fight for a safer, more just world.
If there's one thing listeners take away from this deep dive, I hope it's this. Never underestimate the power of your own voice. Speak up, ask questions, and demand better.
And if you want to delve deeper into this incredible story, we highly recommend Kate Moore's book, The Radium Girls.
It's fantastic.
It's a meticulously researched and deeply moving account of their lives, their struggles, and their enduring legacy.
It's a book that will challenge you, it'll inspire you,
Absolutely.
then leave you with a renewed appreciation for the importance of fighting for what's right,
Yes.
no matter the odds.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the story of the Radium Girls.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it informative, thought-provoking, and ultimately empowering. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep striving for a better tomorrow.